And we are live. What's good, people? It's your man, DL Saint. Welcome to the DL Saint I Really Want to Know podcast. Part 2 for the day, y'all. Part 2. And y'all know what time it is, man. It's time for me to check this. Make sure everything's good. Everything is good. Man, how y'all feeling? How was y'all Tuesday? Hope it's going well. Let me make my head again. All right. Hope y'all Tuesday is going well. My Tuesday is going like all the other Tuesdays, I suppose. Fair to middling. Some of my country dudes used to always say it. Man, thanks for coming through, y'all. So, yeah, man, for this evening, we're going to talk about Woman King, which is the latest Hollywood blockbuster that came out, man, all black female cast pretty much. This movie is about built as a female empowerment movie, which is pretty cool. You know what I mean? It takes place in Africa. They say it's based on true events. And we're going to talk about these events. We're going to talk about just how true this is. We're going to talk about what's going on with what's going on. The funny thing is we're going to start this off with a conversation that was had back in July of this year. I did a show about the true history of warrior women. My man Rook came through, and we talked about this back then. We touched on it. What's good, brother Michael? I see you. Thanks for coming through. Appreciate it. You know what I mean? Day one's up in here, brother Doug. What's happening, bro? So glad you came through. You know what I mean? Brother Mike, I like that chessboard. Yeah, man, I like that board too, man. I don't get to play nearly as much as I would like to. But yeah, I got a nice board, bro. Got a nice one. I actually picked up a good board for the Fresh and Fit studio, man. I gave it to Myron. It's a combination. It's the chess board and it's a go board. It's really cool. Hopefully they'll break that out at their 1 million party, which, with any luck, it'll be this year. As we know, they're in the UK right now doing things, making moves. And I think they'll be back. They're only going to be gone for a week, so they should be back by this time next week. So yeah, bro, appreciate that. Yeah, I like that chessboard, man. Actually, I picked that up on Amazon, bro. I got my buddy a board as well. His were Egyptian. It was an Egyptian board. It was like bronze and silver, I think it was, or something like that. A real nice board. I got that from my man Jay Swans. You know what I mean? So, I'm not real good. Like, I got to look at the pieces. I'm not one of those people who can just, rook to knight 6. I can't do that. I can't play it in my head. I don't play nearly enough to do that. But I ain't too terrible. I can play a slow game and, make it interesting. I ain't too terrible at it. But, yeah, man, like the true story of warrior women that's on this platform. Go back and check that out. It's pretty good. One of my most viewed videos. And Rook, who is a historian, professor, was just kind of walking us through history, the history of our species and the role that warrior women played, the real life role, not a Hollywood up version of stuff like that. And we talked about the homie. And we're going to show a clip of that, what Rook was talking about the Dahomey Empire and what they were doing and who they were and how they got down. And, it's kind of funny because here we are, you know what I mean? All these months later. And, it is what it is. Wonderful 34 is in the house. What's good, fam? Thanks for stopping in. So we're going to talk about it, man. And they're this thing, like everything else, is layered. And we're going to try to sort through it. This takes us right into HollyWeird. This is how they get down. We're going to have, yet another conversation about that world, that bubble. I lived in that world for a while and I moved in those, I'm still moving those bubbles. And I'm here to tell you, man, the way that they think is just crazy. Brother Vikings in the house, I see you. But got that Overwatch, I feel good now. Got Brother Viking out there. You're holding it down. So yeah, we're gonna talk about this a little bit, y'all. It's it's a tough conversation to have, but it's one that's absolutely needed. Like I said, Hollywood's a weird place. The way they view the world, the way they view history, and the way they view, the people of today. Man, as y'all gonna see here in a second, it's weird, bro. It's weird. It's just, and again, we live in this society where people don't like to be accountable for their actions. Everybody wants to get a trophy. All that comes into play, all of it. So yeah, I've set the stage. You guys know what, The Woman King. You guys have heard about it. It's actually, I think they were at 19 million over the weekend, which was number one at the box office. However, that's good because they're number one at the box office, but a lot of people aren't going to movies. It's still pretty lackluster when you compare it to other blockbuster films. But still, they still doing their thing. You know what I mean? So, my hats off to them. Congratulations. It is a movie that features, black folks, people who look like me, and women. And we're living in that age now. You know what I mean? Where, it's all about girl power. It's all about independent, not needing a man. Y'all know what time it is. You know what I mean? So there's nothing wrong with that. But, again, that comes with its own little bag of difficulty. The way we're depicting women, it is what it is. But I don't know. It's kind of mixed messages. So let's get into it. I'm going to watch. Oh, Miss AKA Lady is in the house. What's good, love? How you feeling? Welcome. Thanks for coming through. Appreciate you coming through. Yeah, we're about to get into this. We're going to talk about what's going on. I have a few videos on standby, some pretty good stories. Not stories, but I think it's a pretty good collection of videos to kind of show where we are. And so we're going to start off with my brother Rook, who, again, July 14th of this year, we had this conversation where he was telling us about this upcoming movie. Well, I actually told him about the movie and what group the movie was about. And he immediately began to shake his head like, what? Who? So we're about to get into that. Brother Hayoka's in the house. What's good, bro? Glad y'all can make it. So let's get into it. You know what I mean? Let's get into it. Let's see what Brother Rook had to talk, what he had to say about the homie.
Hollywood and their movies, man. I mean,
right.
Isn't there a new one coming out on the homie Amazons?
Yeah. You want? Yeah, we could. All right. So there's a movie coming out, y'all. Which got, it just happened that this movie is coming out. We did this show for Miss Globe Girl. But it just happened.
I just found out about, because you told me about it, and then my friend texted me yesterday and mentioned about it. And so, I mean, I don't know about the movie at all, but I can tell you one thing: they're gonna have a hard time spinning that one.
and tell us why. Let's real right off rip. Looks like I didn't know nothing about this. People were telling me about it, but they're gonna have a hard time spinning this one. Brother Roz is in the house. What's good, fam? Good to see you. I'm glad you could be here. You know what I mean? Holding it down. Just saying, we got a teacher in the house, bro, holding it down. That's what's up. Leading from the front for real. Brother Roz is in the trenches, y'all, putting in work. You know what I mean? So let's continue. Real quick, tell us why this is gonna be a tough pill to swallow.
Talk about the movie, because I don't know anything about the movie.
I don't know anything about the movie either. I know it's coming out.
Maybe talk about a little bit, what you know, so everyone knows what we're on.
Yeah, let me, because I actually put it up on my phone. And, yeah, The Warrior Queen is the name of the movie.
The Warrior Queen?
Yeah, May 6th of 2022. Is this right? Time. Oh, no, you know what? I'm sorry, that's a different.
I'm looking it up, too.
So,
yeah,
this
Warrior
movie,
Queen.
as y'all can see, I really didn't know much about it. There was at the time it wasn't that much media out there. You know what I mean? It was before the media push. I just caught wind of it. I don't know how. As you can see, I couldn't even remember the title. I think I saw a trailer or something like that, and I didn't even watch the whole trailer, just parts of it. So I asked Rook about it, but then I didn't write anything down, so I was trying to figure it out. And you know how it is when we go live.
Doesn't say a lot about it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So there's a movie coming out. It's gonna be a black movie, y'all. It's gonna be about a tribe in Africa where the women were, I guess, forced to step up and actually defend themselves, take up arms, and I guess it's about their queen, who's played by one of our great actresses. I forget her name and I apologize, guys.
Yeah, and this is a master class in how not to be prepared for a show. I had no idea what I was talking about. It was all vague stuff, but Rook knew everything about the homie because he's a historian. But I didn't know anything. And as you'll see how it plays out. But eventually I was, the chat, I think it was Miss Globe Girl, someone in the chat told me the name of the film, and then I was able to pull it up on IMDb, and then we got on track.
But this movie is supposed to depict this tribe in Africa, which is based on a true tribe, if I'm not mistaken. And
you're right, so brother. Okay, Rook, hey, it is Sister Davis, which we know now, but back then I was struggling.
And Rook told me the following. So here we go.
Well, first the Amazon term was given to them by the Europeans, but they were the Ahosi, that means like the king's wives, or sometimes called the Mino, or our mothers. The kingdom of Dahomey was centered on what's today Benin. And
I got you guys. I'm not even sure if y'all can hear this. And my dumb ass again.
You big dummy.
Forgot to set it up so y'all can see it.
Dummy there. I'm not.
So my bad. Let me give y'all something to look at. Boy, I tell you, today was today. I didn't sleep well last night. Not to make excuses, but this is why I'm dragging. And I got a preteen, man, and we had a rough day, a little bit of a rough day. I had to get into daddy mode, so I'm trying to calm down and get and get with it. Miss Globe Girl's in the house. What's good, love? So I'm about to be back. I'm about to be back on mission right now. So here we go. Now y'all can see it. That's me and Rook, and this is Rook talking about it.
They're the Fon people, was one of the biggest ethnic groups in that area. Called the area was called Dahomey. And they were a highly militaristic society. They fought at least, I think, 11 entrenched wars with the neighboring empire, even stronger empire to the east called the Oyo Empire, which lasted over a 20-year period, which started in like 1728 to 1748. And but after the first year of fighting this bigger enemy, they started what are now called the Dahomey Amazons in 1729. That was when they were formed. And really, they originally formed just to fill out their numbers, to make them look like a bigger army than they really were. And the women were only given banners. They weren't given weapons or anything. They just said, basically, here's some banners, stand there and make us look bigger, to intimidate the enemy. But what's really interesting is that, and this is something I'm pretty sure the movie's going to not tell you guys, but unfortunately, the Dahomey economy was based on conquest and slavery. They routinely did slave raids on neighboring villages and areas like that and collected slaves. That's in fact, the Dahomey Empire rose to power on the Atlantic slave trade because they were actually the biggest supplier of slaves to the Europeans, the Dahomey.
Right. And this is just straight facts. This is history. This isn't Rook, doing anything, saying anything, trying to be nefarious. The brother was just like, yo, they're going to drop this movie. Did they bother to look up who these people were? Because the Dahomey were vicious. It's not just that they were slavers. It's not, it's not just that they were, conquerors and all that kind of stuff and just bad neighbors overall. They had this female warrior set. Nah, bro. You're going to find out how vicious they were. How vicious indeed. You know what I mean? And Brother Mike, like, we are the best. Thank you, bro. I appreciate that, man. Like I said, we just going to push through no matter what. most missions start off with little hiccups, but then you know what? By the time you get up to speed, it's all good. You know what I mean? Appreciate that wonderful 34. You know what I mean? Yes, please hit the like button, as Miss AKA Lady is saying. So let's continue. Like you said, the homie was big time in the slave trade. And again, this was back in July when we had this conversation.
And I have to add, unfortunately for this movie, that the Dahomey Amazons were very much a part of those slave raids where they would capture, including women and children, by the way. A lot of these slaves, they would keep them for themselves, in part not just to work on their plantations, ironically, the royal plantations, but also they used these slaves for annual mass sacrifice. So on average, they would sacrifice 500 of these slaves, including women and children, by the way. These are the Dahomey that this movie's about. I don't know what the movie's about, but they're going to have to spin the shit out of this thing if they want to get across a pretty positive point of view on this very ruthless.
That's hilarious. Like, they're going to have to spin the shit out of it. And that's exactly what Hollywood is trying to do, using the actors. It's not like the producers and executive producers and creators are out there trying to do whatever. They are hiding behind the black faces, the actresses that they put and the actors that they cast in this movie. And I'm not even sure if the actors knew. Well, one did. One actor who was being looked at for this film found out who they were going to be representing, who these people were, and you'll see what they did about that as we continue on. But let's listen to what Rook has to say.
Empire, but this was like a harvest festival. It was an annual festival. In fact, there's actually written records from 1727 where they actually slaughtered 4,000 slaves for this annual harvest thing that they did. But on average, they would kill 500 of them. So this really fed and fueled their slave raids, which, like I said, the Dahomey Amazons were very much a part. When the Oyo Empire, which was to the east, which was part of Nigeria, Togo, and Benin, came and started attacking the Dahomey, their first battle, the Dahomey fought them off. But you know why they fought them off? They fought them off because they had guns. I think there was the older, flintlock type guns,
Yeah.
But actually, the women were known to be able to load them a lot faster than the men. So I guess maybe the movie can talk about that. But unfortunately, where did they get these guns? Well, they got these guns trading slaves to the Europeans. That's why they had guns and the Oyo didn't. The Oyo had a cavalry, but they didn't have any guns, and they were scared off in those first battles. And this is part of the reason why that war with the Oyo lasted for 20 years.
And that's a good point that Rook made there, which I haven't seen the movie yet. I'm not sure if I'm going to see it at the theater. I might wait and catch it on Amazon or something like that. I'm in no hurry to see it, to be honest with you. But from all accounts, it plays like a Marvel film. You know what I mean? A lot of action and stuff like that. But I think that Rook's point would have been well taken, and they didn't even use that. Apparently, in the movie, from all of the trailers and stuff that I've seen, they didn't use the fact that the Dahomey had weapons and that they had a technological advantage over their enemy, and that's why they were so vicious, right? And again, they got said weapons from selling people, black people, my ancestors, into slavery. And the Dahomey wasn't the only tribe doing that. Of course, there were a lot of Africans doing it, but this particular group of people were notorious. And the fact that they had weapons, they had superior weapons over their enemy makes a lot of sense. This is why they were able to have these stunning, victories. But Rook continues on.
Fortunately, though, the Oyo was the greater in numbers and actually conquered the Dahomey. And what's really interesting, kind of ironic actually, is that the Oyo now demanded tribute, including slaves. And this fueled even more slave raids by the Dahomey, because the Dahomey needed to have slaves to give to the Oyo, needed to have slaves for their annual festival, which they slaughtered at least 500 a year. And they needed slaves to work their royal plantations, and they needed slaves to trade with the Europeans for the transatlantic slave trade. Very interesting that they made a movie about this group. I don't know how the hell they're doing it, but it's kind of interesting.
I mean, it's Hollywood. It's a strong title. It fits into
Hollywood's
the woke
not very
narrative.
built for history, folks. Unfortunately, but I can tell you some interesting stuff about them. I don't want to bash them completely, but they were kind of pieces of shit. And also, not to really knock them all, all these Dahomey Amazons weren't all like volunteer fierce women. They were extremely fierce, by the way, extraordinarily ruthless. I mean, you have to be if you're gonna take women and children and slaughter them. But not all of them were volunteers. A lot of the Dahomey Amazons, the Amazons again, a name given by the Europeans, a lot of them were slaves, forced into conscription to fill out their numbers. Some of them were forced in by their husbands that just didn't like them. Oh, history tells us a lot of stuff that Hollywood won't. So,
could y'all imagine being able to get rid of your quarrelsome wife? Like, you know what? I've had enough of you, shorty. You ain't gonna make me a sandwich. We taking you down to the recruiter. Like you were going to fight. Bye. Oh, that's terrible. But let's continue.
unfortunately for this movie, there's a lot. I'm sure the movie will be big and everything, but you know, in time, a lot of this stuff's going to go back and come out, and I'm sure maybe someone's going to find this podcast somewhere in the next few months and be like, oh shit, and maybe I'll get a lot of hate. But hey, I'm just the messenger, man. I'm not making this stuff up. This is real stuff.
This is how it works. So Miss Globe Girl sent us the name is Woman King, and here it is, The Woman King, a historical epic inspired by true events that happened in the Kingdom of Dahomey, one of the most powerful states of Africa in the 18th and 19th centuries.
Yeah, they certainly were one of the most powerful. They weren't as powerful as the Oyo, as I just said, but yeah, definitely one of the strongest ones in Western Africa.
And it has a real strong cast as head up by Viola Davis. Yeah, so it's definitely going to be.
I mean, there's some really cool stuff with the Dahomey, like their religion, which they practice also at that annual festival where they slaughtered slaves by the hundreds. It's called Vodun, sometimes called voodoo, and this isn't to be confused with Haitian voodoo. Haitian voodoo is actually a syncretism. It's syncretized with Catholicism and this Dahomey Vodun, Vodun, which was basically kind of ancestral worship and nature worship was kind of what this was. So I think that's kind of cool. Maybe some Trivial Pursuit type stuff, but Haitian voodoo actually is syncretized between those two religions.
Now, there's a lot of talk about some dance sequences in the film. Again, I haven't seen the film. I'm not going to rush out to see it. I don't think I will. Maybe, you know what I mean? But I don't plan to rush out and see this one. But there's a lot of talk about dance sequences. Of course, they have the actors doing all the media rounds, you know, going on all of the mainstream media platforms, from Good Morning America to The Breakfast Club. You know what I mean? And all points in between, pumping the film up. And all of them, it's like they're in lockstep with their message. They're staying away from the truth. They're staying away from the fact that the Dahomey were worse than the Nazis, worse than the Khmer Rouge, worse than Stalin's Russia. You know what I mean? Like, they were vicious, man. They killed men, women, children, old men and women. It did not care. And those who survived, they sold off into slavery, or they kept them as slaves, or they made them fight and go do this to other people. Like you said, they were ruthless. This is all historical facts. So how did Hollywood miss that? So in the fact that you have someone like Rook who can tell you these little nuances about what's going on with that tribe, why does Hollywood always put their foot in it and they don't go to these experts? I don't understand.
But their religion had a female divine creator goddess called Mawulisa. She was a solar and lunar deity, which is interesting too. Your primary god was a goddess in Vodun religion, as far as I'm aware. You guys can fact check me, but anyway, so yeah, I found that really interesting. You know, and here's what I find also interesting, which I'm sure the movie won't talk about. But one of the downfalls of the Dahomey Empire, aside from the French invasion, because I'm sure the movie's going to be about the French invading and wanting slaves. But one of the major reasons was their economy was getting crushed. And the reason is because the English Royal Navy had set an anti-slavery blockade on the Atlantic coast. At this point, this is later in time now. I can't remember what years it was, but they basically blockaded the Atlantic coast so that they could no longer do the Atlantic trade slave. The English Royal Navy, white guys, were blocking the slave trade. And this undermined the Dahomey economy because now they were no longer able to trade slaves to the Americas, which was one of the things that really helped build and strengthen. That's how one of the reasons why their economy grew and got so strong. They were being blocked, but this was exacerbated by the fact that the French were invading and eventually conquered the Dahomey. And I think that's probably what the movie will be about. But there's all this other stuff about the slave trade. I mean, it's not just the Dahomey. I mean, the Oyo and the Tuaregs up in northern Africa, they were all involved in slave raids and capturing slaves. I mean, a lot of people have this image that white man came into Africa and just started capturing people and taking them off in boats, and I'm sure that happened. But the vast majority of slaves were captured by other Africans, and this is a very sad, unfortunate fact of life. The Dahomey they traded these slaves. Their form of currency was in the form of cowrie shells. Cowrie shells are these little sea snails, basically, and that was their form of currency. That was one of the things they were paid in. But they, like I said earlier, they were also paid in guns, gunpowder, alcohol, and tobacco, and all these other things, these vices.
Which is crazy. And people talk about cowrie shells. Those people were taking shells as money. Well, we take green paper as money, right? Green paper has no value. You know what I mean? Zero. Your dollars are basically worthless if we mess up the economy. You can paint your walls with hundreds of dollars. You know what I mean? Just use this wallpaper because that paper is worthless. The dollar used to be tied to something of value. Now it's no longer valuable. Shit, them shells are probably worth more than $1 these days. Sister Kansas in the house. What's good, love? What's good? What's good? Welcome. We're over here talking about Woman King. And this is, we're starting off the show with, we're looking back, going back to July when Rook was on and we were talking about Miss Globe Girl's show. And welcome, Miss Globe Girl. I see you here. Did I give you a horn? Give you a horn. My favorite sailors in the house. This was her show. This is her show because she suggested that we do it and we did it. And it was, again, like today, this is my second most viewed video. So shout out to you, Miss Globe Girl. Appreciate it. And Rook was talking back in July that Hollywood's going to have a problem telling this story. And he was trying to figure out how they were going to tell the story. And like you said, they're going to have to fucking spin the shit out of it, right? Because the Dahomey were ruthless, horrible people. You know what I mean? So, and then we're going to get into what's going on now with that spin, Miss AKA lady. Sometimes the truth is too controversial. So Hollywood changes the story to protect the bottom line. Yeah, they call that whitewashing. And they should not do it because they only tend to do that when it comes to our story, our community, right? You don't see them doing that in the Latino world. You don't see them doing that in the Asian world for the most part. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, right? But you will see it in our world. I mean, you look at Moses, when they did the 10 Commandments, everybody was white. You know what I mean? So, and the story gets kind of twisted anyway. So that's the problem, Miss AKA. They shouldn't do that. You know what I mean? They just shouldn't do it. Sister Jenny's in the house. What's good, love? Salute to you. Thanks for coming. You know what I mean? And it is what it is. Yeah, there, Brother Mike doing his thing, man. Like I said, shooters shoot. That's his thing, man. It's hilarious. We're definitely going to do a show tomorrow. The thumbnail's been out already. We're going to talk about womanizing tomorrow and the art of womanizing. But until then,
Holla, 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 holla.
we'll let Brother Michael do his thing. But after tomorrow, we'll show him, the fine arts of womanizing. You know what I mean? We'll get you in there, man. Get your tiger style down, bro. You know what I mean? So Miss AKA lady is saying you're absolutely right. They don't wash everything. They don't. And, it's kind of crazy, but it is what it is. I'm not sure. We're going to get into it. We're going to talk about this a little bit more from the Hollywood point of view here in a second. When will Rook return? This month, we've been talking. We're going to do a show. We're going to do some next level shit, man. We're going to be talking about the New World Order, Illuminati, and all that type shit, man. Like really talking about the 1%. And in particular, we're going to be talking about corporate power. And that show's coming up. So it'll be this month. If not, probably next week. I got to see what's up with the schedule. But we've already talked, we've already had a talk. We were on the phone for almost 2 hours talking about it. He blew my damn mind, bro. Doug, you're not going to want to miss that one. You are not. I'm telling you, Brother Doug, that show is going to be dedicated to you because you're not going to want to miss that one. It talking about Meta, talking about, you know what I mean, Microsoft, talking about Tesla, talking about Amazon. You know what I mean? It is going to be in fucking insane. So I'll get that thumbnail up as soon as I've confirmed with Rook. And it's gonna be a great show. And then probably he's already agreed to come on once a month. So then the show after that, the following month, we'll get back into some more history, some historic stuff. I was thinking about maybe pirates. I want to talk about black pirates. You know what I mean? The real Black Caesar was a pirate who was out there with Blackbeard and all those other kind of people. And there were females out there too, female pirates. So I want to talk about that. I'm so lucky that I got access to Rook, man. I'm telling you, bro, hopefully somebody will discover him from this platform and he just fucking takes off. Cause I'm telling you, the dude is a beast. You know what I mean? Like he know weapons on, damn shit, really better than me. And he was never in the military. You know what I mean? Like the brother ain't no joke. So yeah, I'll definitely let you know, man. That thumbnail will be out as soon as I confirm with Rook. Looking forward to it. You know what I mean? All right, thanks. Yeah, man, that show's definitely gonna be dedicated to you, brother. You know what I mean? Miss AKA Lady, hey Doug, I always want to sing the cartoon Doug theme song when I see your name. Oh, that's so funny. I never watched that cartoon. I'm gonna have to listen to that shit. It might wind up being a button. It might wind up being a button. Doug is a cartoon. I'm gonna look that up, y'all. If I can find that might be a button. You know what I mean? For Brother Doug. That's hilarious. So we're going to finish up this part with Rook, and then we're going to move on. So let's just watch this last little bit.
So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they spin this movie. But, I mean, if I was going to make a movie about an African society or something, I mean, they should do it on Nubians. Or there's hundreds of others that they could do it on. But the Dahomey, I mean, they're kind of going to be stepping into a landmine with this when the historians start catching wind of this and the facts start coming out in the coming months, which you heard here first, folks.
Yeah, heard it here first. And
but unfortunately, because what that does now is that's going to undermine the whole importance of understanding of Black history as well, African history. This is basically going to kind of undermine that in the long run, I think. Which is very unfair because
people are going to spin it. They're going to spin it to their political advantage.
It's Hollywood's horrible. That's why I don't watch movies anymore.
And speaking of movies, to your point, when Britain actually policed the slave trade, that was covered in the movie Amistad. That was Matthew McConaughey was in that.
That was a very good movie.
And that was really close, as close as I've ever seen Hollywood get to historic fact. But again, based on a true story, it was a really good story. But again, now with the Dahomey thing, it's gonna show because Singbe probably was sold into slavery by the Dahomeys. You know what I mean, or another tribe or whatever.
I mean, there's others, but I mean, Globe Girl makes a good point. Slavery happened throughout the history of time, and Greeks were notorious for having slaves and treating them horribly. The Romans had slaves. I mean, you can't really look at any culture and not find that they had slaves. I mean, like I said, the battle at Thermopylae with the 300 included slaves in their ranks, and you don't see that in the movies. It's all about Leonidas and his 300. What about the slaves, the Helots? So.
And you said there were thousands of them there.
What's that?
I mean, you said there were thousands of slaves.
There's 8,000 others in there. I don't remember exactly the number, but it was definitely a large contingent of helots or slaves. But there were also Phrygians and other groups that joined the battle.
Arcadians.
Towards the end, when Leonidas realized that things were done and they were over, he sent a lot of them back so that they can fight another day, and then him and his 300 remained. But they didn't. It wasn't just them. There was others that remained as well.
I thought it was funny when you started. Your people, she put this up, man. She was like, "Well, damn." When you were talking about,
and that's perfect that she said, "Well, damn," because everyone is excited. Oh, strong, powerful Black women. Yeah, they were like the scourge of the earth. Oh, oh, damn. You know what I mean? So that's kind of crazy. Sister Candace was saying. This is why it's so important that we know our history so that we can educate the youth The textbooks aren't it. Yeah, there are some good textbooks out there, but they're hard to find. What they're printing now, I would agree with you, is not it. It's a revisionist version of history. You know what I mean? What's the thing that the right's always talking about? As far as history, they're always citing that third level law class, critical race theory, right? So they always jump on critical race theory and they have no idea what that is. You know what I mean? And everything gets lost in that bullshit. You know, it's like it's smoke and mirrors. So we can't teach true history. This is a version of that right here, y'all. It's live and direct. Here's a version of Hollywood trying to teach its version of history so it can make money off a certain group of people. And that's bullshit. You know what I mean? Thank goodness for the internet. Thank goodness for this. Thank goodness for Rook. And all the other people were out there. And there's more folks out there who are going to be talking about this, right? And Brother Mike, yes, sir. Tomorrow is definitely dedicated to you, man. It is your show tomorrow. Definitely. Definitely your show. So that's it's gonna be fucking fun, bro. You know what I mean? We're gonna get into it. And that show is the womanizing show, the art of womanizing. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's crazy. But let's continue.
how it all works.
On the bottom here, yeah. Well,
yeah, how it all works. And then Miss
you know
Glow
what?
Girl.
You know what? As if you guys watched the talk that Don and I had on the Nubians, you can see African history is very rich. Like I said in that lecture, and I keep saying lecture, but as I said in that talk, the Egyptians and Nubians are inseparable. If you're going to talk about the Egyptians, you have to talk about the Nubians. If you're going to talk about the Nubians, you have to talk about the Egyptians. These are very intertwined cultures. And as I was talking earlier, I was saying that, you know, we see Minoan frescoes with blue monkeys, right? These monkeys could only have come from certain parts of Africa, and that would have had to have come through the Nubians. So that means that the Nubians, if they didn't have a direct trade link with the Minoans, at least it was a trade link through the Egyptians. But you still had a rich trade network with sub-Saharan Africa and the African interior. And we haven't even touched on that topic yet. We're talking about Nubians, but the Nubians and Egyptians were trading in the interior of Africa. What's going on down there? I'm very interested. I want to know. Unfortunately, a lot of these culture groups down there were pre-literate. That's very different from saying illiterate. They were pre-literate. So it's very difficult to try to extrapolate their cultures and their religions and their ways of thinking, the ways they, all that stuff.
And then we continue with the show at that point. But Brother Rook was right on point, man. He was saying that. It was like, there are so many stories to be told of people who look like us. We could be talking about Mansa Musa, who was probably the richest human to ever live on planet Earth, and what he did. Those are great stories there. We could have talked about the stories about the Black Pharaohs, the Nubians. We could have talked about the Egyptians, right? We could have talked about the Zulu. There's so many stories to be told. Right. There's so much culture. There's so much there. Hollywood decided to talk about this shit. Right. It's all right. You want to talk about this shit? That's fine. But tell the truth. Right. I mean, and here's the thing. Why even say it was based on anything? You could have made it fantasy. You just could have made it fucking fantasy. And then no one can ask any questions about nothing. It just would have been what it was. But no, you want to try. Oh, this is fact. This is strong black women. And yo, I ain't gonna lie to you, man. This is why I really don't want to go see the shit. Miss AKA lady, I wonder how the real history would adjust current society. Whenever we know history, it's a net gain for our society. Just real talk. The more we know, the smarter we are, the better we are. As a whole, I'm talking about all humans. I've never understood the desire to whitewash history or to, eliminate history. And there's only one reason to do it. It's just so certain people don't know who they are and where they came from. Like the biggest problem with folks like me, born here in America, descendants of, of the slave trade, is our lineage was disrupted. I don't know what part of Africa I'm from. I don't know. Like one of the things I'm always fascinated with is the haka dance. That the Samoans do. I think it's the Samoans, and because a lot of them play football, And that's just like, that's their thing, man. Like, that's their culture. It goes back to the beginning of their time when they do this warrior dance. You know what I mean? And someone correct me if I'm wrong, if it's not the Samoans, but we know we're talking about the Haka. You know what? I'll find that dance on here somewhere, and I'll close out the show with it. But it's you know, like you watch the black shirts who are the rugby guys from New Zealand. They do this dance before every big rugby match. And you sit back and it's like, what's my history? That means a lot. We are devoid of our history. And then you're going to turn around and whitewash that shit? What if we didn't know about this and I raised my daughter to believe that she's of the homie? Then you need to strive to be like the homie. What kind of bullshit is that? When you're, you know what I mean? When I can say, no, my daughter is descended from the pharaohs, the Nubians. You know what I mean? Of the people who built the pyramids, right? So the only reason to whitewash and to hide history is to do that. So certain groups of people don't understand where their power stems from. That's what I think that's how bad the shit gets. And then you look at something like this, it's like Hollywood now. Hollywood has an excuse not to do the next fucking black movie. Oh, we tried that already. Like, y'all motherfuckers did a movie about the black women Nazis, right? Of the fucking 18th century or whatever the fuck it was. It's bullshit. You had all these other people. There was a group of people who escaped the Dahomey, and they formed their own country. Damn, I wish Rook was on right now, because I think he mentioned it in the other show. They formed their own country and they fought the Dahomey. These were people who were fighting to free slaves. This is history. They were fighting the bad guys. The bad guys are the motherfuckers in this movie. Why didn't we tell that story? Wouldn't that be more compelling than the bullshit that they just put out? So yeah, man, I'm not paying to see this shit. Now y'all done got me worked up. Y'all done got me worked up. I'll wait to see this shit on stream for it. So what? Y'all got me like droopy.
You know what? That makes me mad.
And it does make me mad. It's unnecessary. Completely unnecessary. And we're going to find out who's behind this shit too in a hot second. You know what I mean? We're going to find out who's behind this shit. Miss Globe Girl at Miss AK. Hey, lady, I'm thinking we would probably have less self-victimization. Dude, if we knew where we were from, I agree with you, Miss Globe Girl, Miss AK. Hey, lady, they don't know that most people won't look up the truth. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. They know that most people won't look up the truth, so they tell whatever story they want, knowing it will mostly go unchallenged. There has to be some truth in that, love. Has to be some truth in that. Sister Jenny, very powerful energy from the Haka. Yeah, you know what I mean? For real. I'm gonna find that. It's gonna be the last thing. Don't let me end the show without showing that. I want to end the show on that. Because a lot of kids, high school kids do it. Because a lot of kids from Samoa, they play football. It's like a big thing. It gets them off their islands. A lot of poverty there. It gets them off the island, and they come, you know, these high school kids, they go into college and they bring this culture with them to the football field, to the colleges. And there's a video I saw where this young brother, you know, I call all of us, men, women, black. I don't care what fucking color you are. We're all brothers. We all share the same DNA. He's walking up to a game, and you know the young kids wear their suits when they're walking in as young men into the stadium before the game. And this kid's grandfather and father were there, and they started doing the haka. Like, whoo! I was like, oh, I wanted to get out there and play. Like, I wanted to put on my gear and go out there and play. I was so amped up. We don't have that. That was taken from us. This is one of the tragedies of our experience. That was taken from us. My history stretches back to the plantations in Georgia. That's where my people, right? That's where our story starts. We don't know where in Africa we came from. Eastern Africa, Western Africa, Northern. We don't know. And that, I'm telling you, that void helps devastate a people. It helps keep us down. We don't know. And then we get shit like this. Whew, man. Brother Doug the Samoan's not sure if I spelled it right. Man, that's cool. I ain't mad at you, bro. You know I can't spell. Hell, I could barely read. Miss AKA lady, I was really looking forward to watching the movie, but now that you have ruined it, DL. Yeah, hey, man, I'm telling you, don't be mad at me. Don't be mad at me because I'm a thinker. You know what I mean? Y'all come over here, you know what you're going to get. I'm going to tell you to do what? I'm going to tell you to put it in the old...
Think tank. Arch. Nothing gets past the old think tank. Nothing.
I'm going to tell you to put it in the old think tank. Thank you, Brother Roz. I appreciate that. Hawk is from the Maori culture. Maori culture. Told you I can't read. Miss Glow Girl, we are so hungry to know where we come from and our factual lineage that we fall for anything that Hollywood tells us. That's true. I mean, I look back on Shaka Zulu when I came out in the 80s. It was a miniseries, and Roots. You know what I mean? Alex Haley's Roots was like a big one, but that shit was whitewashed so much. I was whitewashed. You know, then decades later comes Amistad, which a lot of critical acclaim, but I don't think it did that great at the box office. I don't remember, but I saw it as one of those blockbuster movies, right? When the Blockbuster found it in like the $5 bin or something, bought it, watched Amistad. It was amazing. And I was talking to my friends from New York. They knew about Amistad because they were taught about it on the streets and in schools. You know, when we had Brother Roz on here, we was talking about how New Yorkers, especially the black New Yorkers, have always been about knowledge of self. They knew shit that the rest of us didn't know. And it's not like they tried to keep it to themselves. They were in New York. Shit, I was in Cincinnati. Only came across a handful of New Yorkers. And the dudes I came across, man, shit, we was about that street life. But even they knew this stuff. You know what I mean? It wasn't common knowledge to us. Sing Bay and what he did, you know, and the Amistad and how that affected young America and how that may have led to the Civil War. It didn't may have led to the Civil War. It led to the Civil War. And how he made it back home to Africa only to find out that his entire village was decimated and all his people were gone, probably into the Americas or whatever. You know what I mean? So that's real talk. Brother Roz, all the blacks, the All Blacks, the New Zealand national rugby team perform it before before matches, but it goes further back than the team. No, absolutely. It goes all the way back. I actually watched an independent film about that era when they actually did that dance. They would actually do that dance in right before they went to kill each other. Like there was a real, that's how they were calling their spirits, their ancestors to come and help them in this battle. And they would go out and they would fight. I can't remember the name of the film, but it was one of those random ones. Again, probably a Blockbuster thing I bought just to buy it. Watched it a bunch, way later. And that was towards the end of Blockbuster's run. It was like a DVD. And I remember watching it, man. It had a lot to do with witchcraft and stuff like that. But the story was a good story, subtitled. It was great. I'm sorry I can't remember the name of that movie, but that's the first time I ever saw the haka when they used that, and then they would actually fight. So our hero would be fighting off these guys, and they would do the dance, and they would do the thing with their tongue, like, he was doing all that. But they were actually fighting. It was fascinating to see. And the whole time I'm sitting there, and I'm like, damn, I wonder what tribe I'm from. I wonder what warrior dance and chants that we have. Don't know. Like I say, man, we can only track it back to the plantations in Georgia. That's it. I've seen pictures of my ancestors that were born into slavery and died free. I saw pictures. You know what I mean? So again, when I see movies like this, it pisses me off. And now we're about to transition into what the cast was out there doing and saying about this movie. You know what I mean? Miss AKA lady, we sang surf before our games. Culture, just kidding. You crazy. We swag. you crazy. Swag surf before our games. I ain't mad at you. You know what I'm saying? We hit a couple licks before our games. Hours before the games, man, we hit a lick and then we'll go get changed. Like, please never catch us here, man. We're on the football field. Perfect alibi. Perfect alibi. So let me pull up this thing. And again, this is not me throwing shade at the actors, Sister Davis and all them. This is not me doing that. You know what I mean? This is not me doing that. But we have to show what's going on. We have to show, the politics behind it, right? And I ain't gonna lie to you, man. It's lightweight bullshit. This is gonna be one of those fair use kind of situations. You know what I mean? I'm gonna catch up on these chats real quick and then we'll play this video. Brother Doug, I am very fortunate I grew up with a historian, my best friend since the 3rd grade. I will never forget when he brought the Black Book to school, a very rare book. Never heard of that book, bro. Is that something that can I buy that? Will I be able to find that on Amazon? What's the author, man? I'm going to try to find that. I've never heard of that book. I want to read it. I know that I read the autobiography of Frederick Douglass last year. I ordered it. Never read it in school. We read some different versions of it, some very watered down versions of it. But if you haven't read the autobiography of Frederick Douglass, it's downstairs. It's downstairs on my bookshelf. I wish I had it here. It's actually a black book with his picture on it. If you haven't read that, y'all need to go read that. Real fucking talk. Y'all need to go read that book. To be able to read the words of such a great man, him telling what he went through. He penned this book. A slave who taught himself how to read and write. He wrote this book. And to be able to read his thoughts, I'm trying to tell y'all, man. I sat down in my living room, bro. It was hard to read it. Hard to read it. And it was scary reading it. Because the stories he's telling about the violence that he was dealing with in that book was the same type shit we were still dealing with today. Stuff that I can relate to. He wrote that in the 1800s, man. Here it is, 2022, and I can relate to the shit he was talking about in that book. It's still going on. This is why, like Sister Candace says, it is very important that we know our history. So we know where we came from, and we can pass that on to our children so they know. I mean, that our lineage was broken, but we can start it up again. You know what I mean? I challenge each of y'all to do that. You know what I mean? Miss Globe Girl. I plan on watching Woman King to see for the theme serves a different purpose today, and I'll compartmentalize the message and story. Yes, it's on Amazon, the Black Book. Okay, I'm gonna order that. Miss Globe Girl, I ain't mad at you, love. I mean, like I said, I'm going to watch it, but I don't think I'm gonna go to the theater and watch it. I don't know. I'm gonna think on your words. I'm gonna think on your words. You know what I mean? I might go out and watch it. I mean, it like they said, that it plays. It's like they say it's real violent. It's like men like it because of that. I mean, it's a lot of, a lot of battle scenes in it. Apparently, I mean, I know the background story, but they say, I mean, of course, the movie is going to be well shot. It was, I think it was $50 million budget on this particular movie. It was well shot. They know what they're doing. They did all the work. And again, they had, powerhouse cast. I might go see it. I don't know. We'll see. I'm thinking on it. I got to get out my feelings. You know what I mean? I'm a man. I let those feelings rush through me. Now I got to get back. You know what I'm saying? I got to get back to one. And Miss AKA lady is saying like, yeah, me too. If anything, to support the black cast. All right, that's a good point. I don't want them to stop making black movies, but DL is right. They should have made it a full fantasy, not based on truth or partial truths. You know what I mean? I added the partial truth part, but you're right. I might go see it. You're right. I mean, there's so many layers to this. Like, you know what I mean? Sometimes you wish things were simple, but they're not. You know what I mean? Just keeping it 100, they are not. Brother Doug, you can't find that book. It was very few in print. Oh, it's like a rare book. I'm gonna have to go to New York. I bet you they got it at maybe DC or New York in like the main library. They probably go to the rare book section to be able to just read it. You know what I mean? At least read some of it. Hold Up is on Amazon. Wow, before Amazon, we couldn't find that book anywhere. Oh, it is on Amazon. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. That's what, Ms. Gloger. I'm gonna get that. Brother Hayoga DL, a wise man changes his mind often. Just in case you go see the movie, I might. And thank you, brother. Like I said, I like to sit and ponder. I put it through the think tank. I love that button for a reason. I put it through the think tank. The think tank, Arch. Nothing get past the old think tank. Nothing. I live by those words, man. And I'm gonna put everything you guys are writing. I'm gonna put that in here. You know what I mean? You better be over here, brother Michael. You ride with us, bro. You know what I mean? Hard in, hard out. You stuck over here with us now, man. But here's the thing, though. This is still a part of American history. It's a part of American history. All of this. That's why we should support each other. Italian Americans, Irish Americans, Polish Americans, Black Americans, you know what I mean? Asian Americans, Chinese Americans, Japanese Americans, Cuban Americans, Mexican Americans. right? Native Americans, we're all part of this now. And we should be, all of us, we should be looking for the truth and tell the truth. The Trail of Tears, horrible. Chemical warfare. Chemical warfare. What we did to the natives here, horrible. We should learn from it, not try to brush it up under the rug. Right? Black folks talk about slavery and redlining. You know what I'm saying? The Native Americans went through some shit too. It's American history. And then Brother Doug was like, I can get my own copy now. Yeah, I'm about to order that book as soon as this stream is over. So this video we're about to play, this is XM fair use. We just got to play this out here. This is the cast, and they're talking about the movie. How they feel about this movie, right? What they were thinking about this movie. So we're just gonna listen to this a little bit, and then we'll speak on this as well.
Well, the resistance we got is exactly the resistance you would imagine.
Yes.
It is a predominantly black female and dark-skinned black female driven narrative.
Mm-hmm.
It just is. And we know traditionally Hollywood has not had that. They do not believe that we can lead a global box office without a white.
I'm going to pause it right there because she's absolutely true. And this ties into what Miss AKA Lady is saying right here. Viola Davis has earned the support. She is on my list of actors that I go out of my way to support. I really appreciate her body of work. She's right. And what she's saying here, Sister Davis, what Sister Davis is saying here is absolutely true. There are layers to this shit. Like there are layers to everything. You know what I mean? We talk about womanizing. We talk about the finance world. We talk about networking. There's layers to all this shit. Right. And this is one of the layers. I mean, you look at someone like me, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about it and I'm like, well, fuck, man. I think it's bullshit how they did this. But at the same time, we still should support our people. This is still a movie about black people, in particular, black women. And they're dark skinned. And I do get the thing with the hair and the textures and all that. They are representing a culture that is rarely seen on film, especially coming out of Hollywood. Damn, that's a good point. If this film does poorly, they're not going to do another one. But the thing that gets me is like every time they want to do some shit, it's like this kind of nonsense. Think about when Game of Thrones was over. And the creators and producers of Game of Thrones, they had the green light to do anything they wanted to do in Hollywood, right? Anything they wanted to do, even though the Game of Thrones at the end was pretty shitty. I mean, it kind of shows that those people had no creative bones in their body whatsoever. So long as they were following what someone else had done, it was perfect. But the minute they had to come up with their own shit, it kind of fell off. But we're not going to get into that. But they had the green light to do anything they wanted to do. And what did they want to do? They wanted to do a series about an alternate America in which slavery was never abolished. That's what they wanted to do. And the first thing they did was they hired a couple black writers, creators, get them on board. Why? When I broke and some people was telling me about it, I was like, fine, because people were like, oh man, you guys are overreacting, you guys being black Americans. Talking to a white dude. You guys are overreacting, man. This is like creative, man. This is just something that is like kind of like fantasy, alternate reality kind of things, man. It could be kind of cool. I said, fine, let's do it. We'll do it. But we're going to cast all the slaves as white folks and all the slave holders as black folks. So when we depict the brutality that the slave holders perpetrate on the slaves, the raping that's going on, kicking in the door, snatching your baby away from you, right? When you see that a big black man walking up on this petite, cute little white woman and he just throws her down and has his way with her because she is his slave and he's a slave owner. How about we do that? Oh, come on, man. We got to keep it historically accurate. You just said it's not accurate. That's not history. This is fantasy. Oh, so you don't want to see that. You don't want to see someone who looks like your sister getting brutalized, but it's okay to see and remember the people who look like me, my ancestors getting brutalized. You're okay with that, right? You're not okay for us to take some young boy and have him laid down, stretched out, and watch him get what they call it when they sodomize them boys, buck busting, right? It's okay to see somebody get buck busting that look like me, but if they look like you, we can't do it. Come on now. That's what I say. Like if you want to do that, that's the movie we would do. And then they didn't want to have a conversation no more because they had to go off and think about it. You know what I mean? I'm sorry I got militant on y'all. Sorry I got militant. But it is what it is. Sister Jenny, fair use. Thank you. Yeah, this is for educational use. You know what I mean? We're going to break it up a little bit. Miss Globe Girl, I hope everyone reconsiders and go see the film unless you are a believer that black women don't deserve this. You're winning me over, Miss Globe Girl. Keep talking. You're starting to win me over, but you do see where I'm coming from, though. I know you see where I'm coming from, and I see where you're coming from, sis. I really do. Brother Doug, I don't have a personal issue with this movie, but I'm not inspired to go to the theaters and watch it. You know what I mean? Sister Jenny, buck breaking. Yeah, there it is, buck breaking. Yeah, which is something, again, this is history that should be taught. As ugly and gory as it is, this is history that should be taught. Every young American kid, I don't care what color they are, should see the photos of the brutal lynchings that occurred in America, where people were out having picnics, bringing their kids out. Now they're like, oh, this is too brutal for my child to watch. But your ancestors were there in live, there watching it live. They were there, barbecuing hamburgers and hot dogs, had the kids out and everything. They had on their Sunday finest going out here watching people get lynched, people who look like me. This is American history. This is what should be taught. We should talk about what the 7th Cavalry did to those Apache and Comanche, tribes that they found out there on the plains. We should talk about that. You know what I mean? We should talk about that. Miss Globe Girl, hey, Doug, I agree. I don't plan on going to the movies either. Haven't been to the movies in almost 10 years, but I'm eager to see it on Prime Video or whatever. Okay, cool. So I can wait till Prime. Great. I'm going to do that because that's what I said initially. I'm going to wait for it to come out on Prime, Miss Globe Girl. I'm going to watch it. I'm just not going to go to the theater and watch it. But it's the box office that matters. It's really the box office that matters. So, I mean, if we truly want to support them, we have to actually spend our money at the box office, Miss Globe Girl. So that's something to think about. Miss AKA Lady, it's a dark black woman cast. It would be hard for me not to support that type of representation. Kids of all cultures need to see real diversity. Society is better that way. I agree. So we're going to continue with Sister Davis.
White male savior or even a white female savior, which is nowhere in the film. So everything became a fight. The hair became a fight.
The hair?
What we look like became a fight. Everything was a fight. But you know what? Sometimes you find your voice. It's like the Toni Morrison quote that when you free yourself, then your job is to go out and free others.
Mm-hmm.
So Sister Davis went on, and as you can see, she didn't talk about the historic part of this movie. She didn't talk about who the Dahomey were and what they did. Her fight and her issue, like her mission, was basically what she's saying there. We need to show Hollywood the people who look like us, with hair like us, with skin complexion like us, can be a box office draw. Most of y'all females cast a story about strong women. That could be a draw. And it can be. And instead of talking about a good movie, a good story, even if it should have been fantasy, or they should have picked, a group of people from history that's more representative of what they were looking for. That strong black archetype, saviors. Because why she said right there, she was like, well, the white folks didn't come save us. Well, historically, we know, according to Rook and according to the history books, that it was the British Navy that came and stopped the slave trade. They had to finally broke the back of the Dahomey. So white folks did come and save, not my ancestors, but maybe some of them from getting sold into the Americas. You know what I mean? So I get where she's coming from, but y'all can see how torn I am just sitting here thinking about it. I'm really torn. It's like, damn, why are we talking about your skin tone and your hair? Why are we talking about this when we should be talking about who y'all representing and the message behind that? So I have to make my peace with those two things. I have to. You know what I mean? So that's what she was talking about. Like I said, it wasn't much more. She just kind of went into, how hard it was to get the stuff through. And I get where she's coming from. That's the actor's perspective. And I get that. I was in Hollywood. I know the struggle. I have a lot of friends who are actors, screenwriters, you know what I mean, producers, all that. And man, it was such a struggle for them. You know what I mean? To this day, it remains a struggle for some. Although now there seems to be a green light on, you know, women, people of color, LGBTQ, like all that right now is like a big surge in Hollywood to find those projects and get those projects out. And that's because of all the wokeism that's going on out here. And my thing is this, I don't care what story you tell, just tell it well. It should be well written. The character should be well fleshed out. Don't just slap some shit together and just present it to me. You know what I mean? Don't tell me it's filet mignon and all you did was went to McDonald's and took a bunch of the beef and formed it together and served it to me with some gravy on top. Go get me the filet if it's going to be filet. You know what I mean? So, but I see the issues on both sides. These actors are stuck. These actors they knew this was bullshit. They knew who to do HollyWeird. If they didn't know when they took the role, they knew once they started researching the role. They knew. So there's another video I want to show you guys. And we you know, after this is just one more, but after I want to show you this quick one. And this YouTube channel is Midnight's Edge. Go over there and check out what they got going on. Midnight's Edge. Go over there, watch some of their videos, like and subscribe. I should do that right now. Let me subscribe. Boom, I just subscribed. Check them out. What they're doing over there is pretty cool. I found this video there. Oops, there it is. So this gets into the Woman King. Sony made the wrong movie and falsified history. So this is what we were talking about. This is a real quick. It's about 8 minutes. Let me catch them on the chats real quick. Wonderful 34. Yo, I got man and started crying with anger. Oh, I got mad. Just watched the video. I got mad and started crying with anger. Not crying tears. Too late, man. We know you crying, man. You over there crying, bro. I get your frustration, bro. Because that's how I feel sometimes, man. I feel like this.
Well, that's great. That's just fucking great, man. Now what the fuck are we supposed to do? We're some real pretty shit now, man.
And that's how those actresses felt. And those actors feel like, oh, man, it's just great, man. That the homies fucked up. Now what we going to do? This is fucking great, man. Do we walk away from the project? Nah, they're going to find some other people to do it. You got to take the bag. I get that. But at the same time, it's like, shit, we're not doing our community any favors here. We might even be doing our community a disservice. Maybe. But isn't it, on the other hand, a victory? It's a victory. It's look at the cast. Look at the movie. It's a big Hollywood blockbuster film about women. Man, it's going to take a while to think this shit through. Brother Doug, for that reason, I may go watch to support. Man, we're going to have to put ourselves to we're going to have to do a poll with whoever's remaining. And we're going to decide as a group, bro. I don't normally do group shit because I know we don't care what the group does. But, you know, y'all my team, man. We're like our own little tag team. We're going to do a vote and see. We're going to see whether we should go to the theaters or not when we're done here, you know, at the very end. I mean, Brother Doug is like, I agree with her, though. Miss Globe Girl, the plight of dark-skinned women today and for the sake of our daughters tomorrow. Good point. Good point. You know what I mean? It's a damn good point. Miss AKA lady, I understand your conflict. On the one hand, you are supporting the cast, but on the other hand, you are supporting an inaccurate story. What's most important? You know what I mean? What is most important, for real? This is a tough one. When Hollywood makes another inauthentic movie pulling from historical storylines, we still watch them with no issues regarding authenticity. Damn good point, Miss Globe Girl. I can't get mad at you for being smart. You're putting it through the old think tank and you're forcing the rest of us to think. Can't be mad. So let's watch this video right here. This video was kind of, you know, striking to me. Let's check this out. Go check out Midnight Edge, y'all. Subscribe.
The Woman King, the brainchild of social justice activist, producer, and former actress Maria Bello and Dana Stevens, is in theaters. Sony, who greenlit the movie in 2020, surely thought they must have had a movie that was with the times and would resonate with audiences everywhere, making...
So you see what they're doing right off rip. Right off rip. It's really hard to call it a black movie when the people behind the movie aren't black. Spike Lee films are black movies. You know what I'm saying? What's the name of the dude that did My D and all that? That dude, his films are black movies. The guy out of Atlanta. I always forget his name. His films are black movies. This movie came to be from two women who have an agenda. And they were trying to, ride that wave of success that Black Panther had, which is a Marvel movie.
Making it the next Black Panther at the box office. Instead, its opening weekend is marred by the hashtag Boycott Woman King trending, and the ones driving that hashtag hail from the black community. In this editorial, I will begin with exploring what is so bad about the Woman King, the measures the studio have gone through to protect it, and what lessons should be learned from this. Now, full disclosure, this is a part of history that, like most, I am not too familiar with. My fellow YouTuber and good friend Mr. H Reviews has done his research on the matter though. So this first came on my radar through his video on the topic, and our subsequent discussion on it, both of which you will find linked in the description. Since then, I have done some reading on the topic myself, and while I by no means can claim any kind of expertise on the topic, it is pretty clear, even from a superficial reading, that the Dahomey were villains. To the point where one can assign terms like good or evil, they were, without a doubt, and without much grey area, sheer evil. They weren't merely slavers, they were practically perpetrators of genocide. History versus Hollywood writes, and I warn that this is a graphic account.
And, he's warning it's a graphic account, but Rook already told us about this, right? I just wanted to show this because it's basically co-signing everything that Rook said. Everything that Rook said. And thank you, Brother Michael. Yes, fair use. We're using this for educational purposes, right? We're continuing this conversation in the community. I think that's what YouTube was built on. Miss AKA Lady, random question. Is it a form of blackface for white writers to tell a black story using a black cast? Yeah. I mean, what else are we supposed to say? Fuck yeah. It absolutely is. But there's a fine line there. It would be different if it were fantasy. Then I would say, nah, man, they just thought this shit up. That's my take on it. What do y'all think, man? One's in the chat if this is a form of blackface. One's in the chat if this is a form of blackface in y'all opinion. And Brother Michael, you allowed to comment. You know what I mean? You allowed to put your one up there or zero or whatever if you don't. Zeros if you think it's not a form. One if it's a form of blackface. Zero if it is not a form of blackface. Wonderful 34. Come to find out that tribe was fighting to keep slavery alive. Yes, that's what the Dahomey was doing. That's how they got their money. That's how they got their weapons. They were feared because they had guns, man. The Dahomey had heat. That's how they were beating everybody around them, man. They were getting guns in exchange for slaves and other goods. And they didn't care. Shout out to you, Brother Michael. But let's continue with the video.
The Kingdom of Dahomey was a bloodthirsty society bent on conquest. It was customary for the Dahomey to return home with the rotting heads and genitals of those they killed in battle. They conquered neighboring African states and took their citizens as slaves, selling many in the Atlantic slave trade in exchange for items like rifles, tobacco, and alcohol. Many of the slaves they sold ended up in America. They also kept some slaves for themselves to work on royal plantations.
Makes you think that Rook did this shit on his own. This is exactly what Rook was saying. This is why history is so important, because the words hold true. This is why history is so important. right? Some young kid can watch this. Some young kid will watch this like, I want to be a Dahomey Amazon warrior. It's like Rook said. It was white folks who called them Amazon. You know, they were probably hoping for this. I bet you anything. I bet you $1 to a donut. I bet you $1,000 to a donut that they were sitting on a shit ton of Halloween costumes, Dahomey warrior princess costumes. I bet you they're like, damn, we got to call it something else now. What are they going to call it? Miss Globe Girl. When black people step up and start telling our own stories, it becomes a problem. Until then, it's fair game, in my opinion. I don't think it's a form of blackface. Fair enough. I think it's a form of blackface. I'm not saying that maybe it's intentional, but I mean, I think it just plays out that way. It's like blackface, carpet bagging, you know what I mean? Culture, vulture type shit. I understand it. You know what I mean? Get your money. But I mean, you're just kind of just looking at it, just trying to keep it real. I think it's a form. You know what I mean? But that's why I love this platform, because we share our opinions, right? We share our thoughts. And with that, we can, you know what I'm saying? We can grow. Even this small group right here, the people in here right now, we grow bouncing ideas off each other. You know what I mean? Miss AKA Lady, Miss Globe Girl, Brother Michael, Brother Doug, you know what I mean? Wonderful 34. Everybody, Sister Jenny, everybody that's in here right now, we're bouncing ideas off each other. This is how people grow. This is how communities form lasting bonds. You feel me? So yeah, we sit back and we can agree or we could disagree. We could argue with one another, but it's coming from a healthy place and we learn. We're teaching each other shit. Y'all done seen I done flip flop 3 or 4 times just in the past hour and 15 minutes on whether to go see the movie or not. In theaters versus not going at all and versus watching it on Amazon Prime. But that's a damn good point, Miss Glow Girl. Miss AKA Lady, I think it depends on the writer. If the white writers is generally in the culture, then a valid story can be told. The problem is when a writer doesn't truly know or understand the culture. Yes, and what I would add to that is they're simply in it for the bread. You know what I mean? Yeah, I see that. You know what I mean? Miss AKA Lady is agreeing with Miss Globe Girl. Hayoka 33, masterminds, absolutely. My cousin said this about it. He's like, man, I wouldn't be surprised if this shit wasn't just a setup from the beginning, so we don't have to do any more fucking black movies. So we could say, I told you so. You know what I mean? Because that's how his mind works. He immediately goes to what's in it for them. What are they really trying to do? And I'm like, yeah, bro. You know what I mean? We had that conversation yesterday. And as I'm sitting here doing this show, that's in the back of my mind. It's like, damn, my cousin might be right. And Rook said it back in July. It's a million stories they could have told coming out of Africa. So many cultures, so many tribes they could have chosen. Look who they chose. You know what I mean? And again, we can't say it's black people making the choice. The people behind this movie don't look like us. Brother Doug, I don't know. I'm going to wait. Let's continue with this video.
The business of slavery is what brought Dahomey most of its wealth. For them, it very much came down to either enslave others or become enslaved yourself. The women warriors, the Agoji, fought in slave raids along with the male fighters. There are accounts of Dahomey warriors conducting slave raids on villages where they cut the heads off of the elderly and ripped the bottom jaw bones of others. During the raids, they'd burn the villages to the ground. Those whom they let live, including the children, were taken captive and sold as slaves. The movie strategically downplays this part of Dahomey's history, so as...
And that's my problem with it. I wouldn't have a problem with the movie if they just told us to. I mean, you could have, if you're going to fudge with history a little bit, show how horrible, how horrific the Dahomey really were. And then maybe you got a protagonist in there who is trying to change things from within, maybe letting slaves go here and there or whatever. You got, you know what I mean? Maybe you got something like that. I don't know, but to turn it, to completely whitewash it. And Miss AKA is right. Black culture is marketable right now. Black culture has always been marketable. But right now, especially with this whole woke movement. And the problem with woke movement, man, these wokies out here, they get tunnel vision, man. They don't put nothing through their think tank. They don't use their heads. And that's a problem.
Not to complicate the story with the truth. Each year in Dahomey, roughly 500 slaves and criminals were mass executed in large-scale human sacrifices during the religious ceremonies of a festival known as the Annual Customs of Dahomey. Most were sacrificed by way of decapitation, a method of killing widely used by the Dahomeyan kings. The 1727 annual customs of the Dahomey ceremony reportedly saw as many as 4,000 people sacrificed.
Exactly what Rook told us. Like I said, that's the thing with history, man. You can't. The words are the words. What happened, happened. It was recorded the way it was recorded. The Dahomey were horrible people. Horrible people. Let's watch a little bit more and then we'll move on to the last video.
Also, when the Europeans banned slavery, the Dahomey kept at it. John Boyega's character, King Giso, is a real historic character. But Viola Davis' character, Naniska, who demands the Dahomey stop slavery, is entirely fictional, even though there are historic references to a teenager girl of that name. Only she didn't demand slaves be freed so much as she beheaded them. In other words, the movie The Woman King takes some extreme liberties. Of course, that is nothing new. Movies like 300, The Patriot, and U-571, to mention but a few out of many, have changed some events or ignored some context for the purpose of furthering a narrative. But the liberties taken by The Woman King go beyond that, and well...
And Rook talked about that. He talked about 300, how they overlooked the fact that it wasn't just Leonidas and his personal guard at 300, but there were, thousands of others, which included slaves. Spartan slaves that fought and died there at Thermopylae as well. Yes. And keep in mind that 300 was based on a graphic novel. So that was their out. They were like, we know we based this on a graphic novel. You know what I mean? Has there been a realistic depiction of what happened there? Maybe. I haven't seen the film if it does exist. But, Rook said that same thing. Miss AKA lady, like some people need to go back to sleep. Too woke. Absolutely. They love being in the Matrix. Woke people just really they're the sentinels of the Matrix, y'all. They really love being plugged in. I like being unplugged. And this is part of being unplugged, man. Talking about what really happened in history. You know what I mean? I agree with you, and so does Miss Globe Girl. We agree with you, Miss AKA lady. So let's check it out.
Into overt falsification of history territory. It's one thing when a Marvel movie does it, or a genre flick like The Mummy, because they never claimed to be historically accurate in the first place, or based on real events. The Woman King does both. That is the key difference here.
And that's real talk. That is my biggest problem with this. They're saying that this is who these people were. Bullshit. If I tried to make a movie about the nice Khmer Rouge, people would think I was insane. Right? The Khmer Rouge killed millions at the killing fields. Right? In Southeast Asia. If I did that, people would say I'm crazy. If I tried to say that Stalin wasn't that bad, people look at me like, what? Stalin killed more people than Hitler. Right? And everybody agrees that the Nazis are bad. What they did was horrific, especially what they did to Jews, political dissidents, to gypsies, and to people born with disabilities. What the Nazis did was horrific. What the Dahomey did was worse. You see what I'm saying? But then it ties back to that original argument we were having. Well, so we're just not going to, you see what they offer up this project and they put these black actors and actresses in front of this thing and force them to defend it, man, which is sad. Here they are, the descendants of slaves, most of them, descendants of slaves, defending the very people who enslaved them. Boy, you talk about a mind fuck, y'all.
If the producers were hoping for another Black Panther, and they can't be pleased with the response. The Rap wrote, "Who is driving the hashtag boycott Woman King trend on social media in protest of the Viola Davis starring historical epic that hit theaters today? Perhaps surprisingly, it's not the same people who dropped racist memes in reaction to the first look at Halle Bailey in Disney's live-action The Little Mermaid trailer. Critics don't have an issue with Davis playing a strong black leader in The Woman King, but are alarmed that the history of the Dahomey tribe, who sold other Africans into slavery, has been whitewashed.
And that's what we're talking about. That is a huge problem. That is a huge problem. Like, well, and the easiest fix would be like, well, just go back, rewrite this thing, make it a fantasy. But you got two people who probably couldn't do it. Maybe they didn't have the talent to rewrite this thing. Like, this is what we got. It has to be like this or nothing at all. I don't know. Miss AKA Lady, real talk, black folks don't like to acknowledge that Africans were in on the trade too. Right. They were major factors in the slave trade. That part of our history is like a perverted uncle that no one wants to claim, right? Or a real touchy priest that the Catholic Church don't want to claim. They just move them around. Same thing. Instead of dealing with the issue, let's just do this. And this might be a good film. I ain't gonna lie to you. You know what I mean? I might have to go see it now that I done trashed it. I might have to go see it and then come back and do like a little review on it. And do my best to set the history aside and just talk about the film itself. But I got to tell you, I'm just a little bit unnerved by the fact that I got to go and watch this movie that I know is historically correct and I see what they're trying to do. And it's going to be all kind of woke stuff in there. I know it's going to be all kind of stuff in there. It's going to be some sort of love interest. It's probably going to be like some lesbian love or something like that. Some forbidding love. I bet you it's going to be something like that in there. I bet you that the ruler's going to come off as weak. I bet you the men are just going to be getting slaughtered, like getting their asses beat. It's like being, like this whole army was fucking trained by Black Widow. You know what I mean? Miss Globe Girl. So specifically who in the making of this movie is saying this movie is historical facts? Do we know the source of, or is this narrative just propaganda to throw us off? All of the actors are saying that. They're saying this is based on history. Some are saying it's loosely based on history. The studio is saying it's based on history. If you go back and read, like if you go to the IMDb or just like Wikipedia or something like that, if you pull that up, it says it's based on historical events. You know what I mean? Like I said, they used the king's name, but then they made up Sister Davis's character. And we're gonna get into why they did that here in a second. So now it's definitely out there. The plan was to sell this as historical fact.
To boycott the Woman King movie. The film is about the Dahomey and Benin that traded slaves into the transatlantic. This may be the most offensive film to black Americans in 40-50 years, wrote Los Angeles attorney and producer Antonio Moore.
Antonio Moore's mad HollyWeird don't mess with him. That's what that's about. He was one of the first voices. He has a point. He's really driving it home, but what he's really trying to do is force HollyWeird into giving him a deal so he can do a movie, right? So, we all have our reasons behind shit. Everybody has a motive. That's his motive, right? He's mad like, how you going to give it to these women over here that look the way they look, but you ain't going to give it to me, a real black man. So that's what that is about. That's what that's about.
Let's be honest, folks. It's a movie about an African tribe famous for selling slaves to Europeans that was made into a female empowerment story by two white women writers. You don't have to be very woke to see the problem here, wrote one Twitter user. The challenge for
Miss AKA Lady gotta go. Good night, love. Sleep well. Thanks for hanging out. You know what I mean? I'll be done here in about 30 minutes. But thanks for hanging out, love.
Sony here is that there really hasn't been any backlash to the movie to speak of at all. And what there is comes from the black community and is based on actual written history. So the only real response has been, see this movie or you'll support the narrative that black women cannot lead the box office globally.
But I get her point. They're talking about Sister Davis tweets and all that. If you don't back this movie, you're racist. I get where they're coming from. I see what they're saying. It just sucks to be forced into this position.
The tragedy here is that if you ignore the falsifying of history, The Woman King is by all accounts a very good movie. It tells an African story, and there should be more movies like that. There are countless African stories based on real history as well as myth and legend, spanning the width of the continent, dating back thousands upon thousands of years. And
again, that's exactly what Rook was saying. Why pick this story? You have all these stories to choose from. Why pick this story? That's the problem. Why are we doing this? Hollywood. You know what I mean? And that's why in Hollywood's like, why is everybody picking on us? Because y'all HollyWeird when y'all do shit like this. Doesn't make any sense. You have all these stories to choose from, yet y'all chose to go with this story. And then you put a bunch of black folks out there to defend the story for you.
these stories should be told and presented to a wider audience, so that is not the issue. The issue here is that to lead what could and should be a charge, Sony chose to back two white social justice activists in telling a lie and a falsification of history. They didn't tell an African story. They told a story that fits their revisionist and subversive agenda.
And that's a problem. It's political. And if you're going to do that, just make it fantasy. You can still get the same mission accomplished by making it fantasy. You didn't have to go there and start all this chaos by trying to make it historically accurate. I mean, I get that. And they walked away with a bag. It's a $50 million project. They got paid before filming even started. They walked away with a bag. I mean, I ain't mad at them. They're getting bread. And it's probably on pace to make that money back. But you know, with Hollywood accounting, they always show a loss. But they made money. And this backlash, we need this backlash to make people in Hollywood think twice. Like, all right, if you're going to do a movie, that's fine. But let's at least make sure that we're telling the story of those worthy, well, not even that. We're just going to tell the accurate account of what happened. Whoever you choosing. We're going to talk about it, the homie. We're going to show how vicious they really were. Right? I would rather deal with the backlash of people coming and saying, oh, you're just trying to make black people look bad. Like, no, man, we just telling the truth here. We found a good story. We told a good story. It's historically accurate. We should have learned this in school. I'd much rather do that than do what we're doing now. Deal with the shit we're dealing with now.
The issue here. Sony got played and made the wrong movie. One can only hope that they and everyone else will recognize it and not let that deter them from telling actual African stories that should be told in the future. Let me know your thoughts on this.
And that's a great point. Outstanding point. You know what I mean? So it's probably a great movie, man. It probably looks good. It's probably a visual spectacle and all that good shit. But here's the thing. We ain't even talking about that. We got to talk about this other stuff. Right? We got to talk about this other stuff. And here's one more thing I wanted to show you guys, and then we'll wrap this up. There was an actress that they wanted to play the lead before Sister Davis, who was known for Black Panther and a bunch of other movies, like a really strong up and coming actress. And this was on Dr. Boyce Watkins' YouTube. Go over there and give him a subscribe and check him out. Give him a like for some of his stuff. I'm not a huge fan of Dr. Boyce, but it is what it is. But I did want to share this part with you guys because it really shows that there are some people out there who who do what they feel is right. Once they know, they do what they feel is right. Yes, Sister Candace, and that's her. It is her. Brother Hayoki, you can't win. Either you support the movie and its falsehoods, or you demean African culture by the very history itself, the homie not being good to look at. Right. It's catch-22 in the worst way. You know what I mean? You talk about being stuck between a rock and a hard place. That's definitely where we are. So let's watch this real quick. On why Lupita refused to star in The Woman King. Now, they wanted her to play the lead, and it sounded like she had actually signed on, and she started doing research, and then she had a change of heart.
King, and what happened was Lupita, in order to promote the film, she went to Benin to do a documentary on the Agoji warriors, And so Lupita gets to Benin, and she's like, "Oh, this is super dope. This is so great to learn about these warriors that represent, strong Black women and everything else, right?" And and so, by the way, let me know if you guys can still hear me. Okay, I sometimes when I switch stuff, I get real paranoid about the audio. I want to make sure I'm coming through.
And
okay.
Benin's the country today. She went there to do the research.
So Lupita goes to Benin, and she's all excited about doing this role and everything else. And when she's there, she starts hearing stories about the Agoji. And people start telling them stories about how the Agoji warriors, the Amazon warriors, would come to their village or come to, these are stories, I guess, that pass through history and through tribes and things, and that they were brutal as hell. Like, they were incredibly brutal. And despite what the movie says, the movie tries to give this insinuation that they were against the slave trade, that they were fighting, that they were a bunch of feminist warriors fighting to end human trafficking of Black people. And from what I understand, that is not true at all. That is the complete opposite of history. They made a ton of money trading slaves. They never stopped doing it. They never walked away from it like, oh, this is bad, we're not going to do this anymore. And so the movie, that was the area where the movie made a massive historical pivot, to the point where they ironically get you sort of admiring these women that were kind of like female pimps, the same.
A lot worse than pimps, like female Nazis. You know what I mean? Stalinists, the Khmer Rouge. Like, you think of all of the most horrific folks in modern history paled in comparison to these women. So you can see that, someone like Dr. Boyce, who's well educated, even he doesn't know much about this group from this culture. So you see how Hollywood knew what they were doing. We can slide this in here, right? We can whitewash history. We can make a bag, right? We can push our feminist agenda. It's the perfect play. If it weren't for the old computer getting in the way.
Him is the dude in Chicago who brings immigrants into the country so he can make them into, I don't know, R. Kelly slaves. This is the same type of thing. They literally would send tons of people to the Europeans to be put in the slave trade. So Lupita was so disgusted by what she saw that she said, I can't do this movie. I'm not doing this movie anymore. She backed out. And that's when they went and got their second choice. That's when they went.
So there we go. There's a young woman who was like, nah, man. She found out what was going on. Like, she was like, this is great. I'm getting a bag. I'm going to headline a Hollywood blockbuster film. It's going to be great. We got all these big names in it. This is amazing. She found out who these people are, what these people really did. And she's like, nah, man, I can't do it. And she backed out. She was the biggest star. She was the one that they wanted. They wanted her to do this film. Sister Davis was number 2, or maybe even lower down on the list. They wanted the young woman to play the role that they discussed earlier, this young, vicious, noble in the Dahomey Empire. But she was like, nah, man, I can't do that. Nah, bro. So my hat's off to her. Lupita, salute to you. That takes courage. Of course, they're just going to replace you with somebody else. And of course, the movie's going to come out. And here's the thing. I'm pretty sure people are thinking like, man, you think she regrets it? She could have got the bag. All money ain't good money, people. That's what we mean. All money ain't good money. She was like, nah, man, I ain't doing this. I ain't doing it. Salute to her. You know what I mean? Sister Candace, I have to applaud Lupita for not committing to a film that was not historically accurate. And it was that plus, it's who they were. I think it was more along the lines also that it's like, man, she just didn't want to be involved in this whitewashing. Like, yo, these people are horrific. You know what I mean? I can't be a part of that. Salute to her. Salute to her for that, because that's, like I said, that's a lot of money you left on the table. It's a lot of bread. A lot of bread. So yeah, salute to her. And salute to y'all for rocking out with me. Like, we see what it is. You know, it's such a big thing to have your culture stolen from you. You know, to have that culture taken from you and then turn around and we're going to make a movie that glorifies the people who sold your ancestors into slavery. That's such a big thing. So I'm glad y'all rock with me, man. I know this was a tough one, but the conversation needed to be had, y'all. Take this information and use this information properly, y'all. Go out there, put it in the old think tank. Continue this conversation with folks out there in the real world. You know what I mean? Because that's how we really change shit. For real, that's how we really change shit. Miss Globe Girl, I guess this isn't shocking to me, and I'm not appalled because I know there's a lot of other tribes that did the same thing. True. Also, I know that Africa wasn't that good to my ancestors. True. You know what I mean? And from my standpoint, it's just this. If they came out right and just made a movie about who the homie really were, all right, that's one thing. They're not trying to change it. They're not trying to, you know what I mean, sweeten it up or whatever. That's one thing. But to try to come and try to make it like, oh, but they're, you know, they were nice at this point. They weren't. They were vicious. It is what it is. But it is good that the movie got made. It really is. It really is. So thank all y'all for being here. Miss Globe Girl, Sister Candace, Brother Michael, you know, Brother Hayoka, Brother Doug was in here. Everybody was in here. Sister Jenny, thank y'all so much. And as promised, I wanted to end with this. Like, I don't know what dances we have in the African culture. I don't know where my people were snatched up from. I'm assuming it was West Africa, but who knows? I don't know that. But this is the dance I was talking about before. This video is LSU player performs the haka dance with his dad before the game. He's walking up in a suit. He's Hayeka 33. Yeah, you be safe too, brother. But we're gonna end with this. I want y'all to see this. He's walking up to the stadium. He's in a suit with the rest of his team, and it's like his father's there, and I think it was his grandfather too. And wonderful 34. That's right. You was in here too, man. Peace to you, brother. Thanks for coming through. But check this out. I think this is just one of my favorite videos, man. I watch this often, man. I watch a lot of videos like this, man, because, you know, I'm devoid, like most of us, almost all of us, devoid of culture. I don't know where I'm from. You know what I mean? Maybe we'll have to run the DNA and find out. You know what I mean? But let's check this out real quick. That's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. I love watching that. Absolutely amazing. Look at his face. Look at his face. I'm going to run that back, and then I'm going to go. I'm going to run that back. This is why we need culture. This is what makes us great. They know where they're from. They know where they are from. It is shared. They know where they are from. You know what I mean? I'm going to run that back one more time. They know where they are from. Miss Globe Girl, but as people have, let me see. But as a people, we have gotten to a place where movies are now means to education and facts. Good night, y'all. Thank you, Miss Globe Girl, for everything you said. Very powerful words. We're going to push this video so we can get out there. People can see how brilliant everyone is over here on this platform. Sister Candace, love to see that. We're going to see it one more time, and I'm going to leave. Play it again. I'm going to play it right now. This is DL saying I really want to know podcast. I'm DL saying I'm going to talk to y'all later. About to play this one more time. One more again. Check this out, y'all. This is why culture is so important.
That is some great stuff right there.
This is why we need to know our culture. I'll talk to y'all later, man. I'm DL Saint. This is DL Saint. I really want to know podcast. I'm out of here, y'all.
Darn, that's the end.